Well, hey everybody, John Retlin here, and this is a double retro review featuring two wrestling shows that took place on April 2nd, 1989. Over here, WWE presented WrestleMania 5 from Trump Plaza. Over here, the NWA WCW under the Ted Turner, control presented from the New Orleans Superdome Clash of Champions 6. Prestigious New Orleans Superdome. You're thinking, okay, all the shows Bill Watts did there and drew 20,000 plus people multiple times, and the Superdome being synonymous with some big wrestling events and everything, and this big stadium and everything, and with Ted Turner's money and all this talent and everything, they're gonna blow the WWE away. Well, I mean, match quality, there were a couple matches that were better, but let's be honest, the only successful one was Mania 5. But the real question is why would these two promotions run shows head to head with each other? In brief history, try to cover this in about a minute. You have to go all the way back to Starrcade 87 that took place on Thanksgiving night. From 83 to 86, Jim Crockett Promotions did very, very well presenting the show of shows on Thanksgiving night. And Thanksgiving had been a big deal for many wrestling promotions for a number of years because after families eat and everything, they're all full. If they're wrestling fans, they want to go out and watch some live wrestling. And it was a big, big night for so many territories. Jim Crockett saw that, listened to Dusty, and Dusty and him presented a really goddamn big card. And again, 83 to 86 was very successful. 87, less so. They took it out of Greensboro, North Carolina, and put it in Chicago. Business wasn't as good, even though Chicago did pretty well. But also, Vince created Survivor Series 87 to hit back and try and damage Jim Crockett Promotions. And also threatened the cable companies and saying, if you carry this card, you can't have Mania 4. Lying out of his ass and everything because he wouldn't actually be able to control that, but some of the cable companies bought it. Even though Vince had a big foothold in wrestling, Ted Turner also, he was cable before cable was cool. And Ted Turner helping, with a lot of, helping present Jim Crockett Promotions on his TV. You think, with all that, now Ted Turner was going to muscle and get some more, help Jim Crockett a little bit. But it would take a bit because after Starrcade 87 got hurt, in addition to the cable, the cable wars and stuff like that, Bunkhouse Stampede 88 did not do so well in January because Royal Rumble 88 was created and presented on the USA Network. And then you have to go to finally when Jim Crockett Promotions was able to fire back, and Ted Turner was helping him, giving him a big time slot for the first ever Clash of Champions that really did put a dent in what WrestleMania 4 could do. And Clash of Champions 4, and I did a review of both those Clash of Champions 1 rather, against WrestleMania 4. I did a review of both of those. That was quite interesting, and Clash of Champions 1 was damn good. And it was a near pissing contest until you get to this one. By this point, even though Ted Turner, owned the company, the people in charge were really bungling it. And listening to Jim Cornette's podcast, he talked about how George Scott was put in charge and didn't know what the fuck he was doing, found a way not to promote Clash of Champions 6 all that well. And it didn't do really well, and the crowd in the Superdome was very, very short. As far as numbers of people, I think it was 5,000 people. Maybe even less, even though the crowd was loud. So, given that brief history, that's pretty much why they were running those shows head to head, because, the guys in WCW really wanted to hit back at Vince. Problem is, they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and from even the Great American Bash 88, and even the return houses and stuff like that, until things really started to go down. The sale had to go through, and the sale to Ted Turner from Jim Crockett. From there, it just got worse. They took Starrcade out of Thanksgiving and put the day after Christmas or something like that. And then they just gave a lot less love to a whole bunch of the house shows and all this stuff and everything. But the whole point is, now with that brief history, we're going to run into Mania 5. And I'm going to be honest, Clash of Champions 6 was not great, but boy, it had a couple matches that were better. Mania 5 was no doubt a huge success on pay-per-view, and people wanted to see Hogan versus Savage happen. There were 14 pissing matches on this goddamn show. 14 matches that weren't, some of which were fine, others that had fluky finishes. This was barely better than WrestleMania 4, and not by much. So yeah, I had this brief video package. I'm starting my Mania 5 review now. I don't think these reviews will take very long outside of talking about a couple matches, and I will have a rant about one talking segment here. But the Mega Powers explode, and yeah, it's a brief, little video package thing at Trump Plaza. Rockin' Robin does a rendition of America the Beautiful. She was a better wrestler than a singer, I'll say that much. Ventura and Monsoon on commentary, and then we start off with Hercules versus King Haku. It was basic. It was strength versus strength. Not bad. I covered this. I covered the opening matches for Mania, and I covered a lot of matches for Mania, like various ones, and ranking videos, so you can figure out what exactly I thought about this. But it was what it was. Hercules did get a back suplex for the victory, so it was fine. It was a fine power matchup, but some of these older shows age really well, and some of them do not age well at all. And Mania 5 is one that did not age well at all. You then had Akeem and the Big Boss Man, the Twin Towers as they were called. Always had a problem calling them that. With Slick. Slick's theme is so fucking amazing. I love Slick's theme. If you're going to put somebody in the Hall of Fame, why not put Slick in there? He was pretty good, even though he's only around for a few years. But they faced off against the Rockers. And the Rockers were... The Rockers pretty much, even though they targeted Akeem's arm and tried to do the hit and run, stuff like that, Jannetty did get beat down after a bit. He tagged Sean. Sean got beat up a bit. They hit some moves, but Akeem just hit the big African splash, 1, 2, 3. And yeah, Akeem truly was the one-man gang in here. I mean, I know that's a bit of a dumb joke, but he was the one-man gang, and nobody bought the fact that he was this, and it was also a gimmick to make fun of Dusty Rhodes. Not the American Dream, but the African Dream. Yeah, it was what it was. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't great. Then we had Ted DiBiase with Virgil versus Bruce the Barber Beefcake. I don't like Bruce the Barber Beefcake, and poor Ted having to do this. Brutus started off hot. He did hit some good moves. Ted did take over, grounding Brutus. Virgil ends up distracting Brutus. He goes outside. Ted attacks him outside, and we end up with a double countout. So far, we are not up to the best start and everything. We then get Lord Alfred Hayes with the Bushwhackers. Two of these guys were gross human beings, and then there's Lord Alfred Hayes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, well, there's stories floating around about Lord Alfred Hayes from people that were actual, wrestlers that were actually around him, where he might not have been that good of a guy. And if true, that's kind of shit. So then we get the Bushwhackers versus the Fabulous Rougeau Brothers with Jimmy Hart. They would have a better match at a later Royal Rumble. I want to say it was, I don't know if it was 92. 91? Something like that? 90. I think it was 90. They would have a better match there. This was not very good. The Rougeaus dominated first. And then one of the Rougeaus, I believe it was Raymond, had an abdominal stretch on. But then the Bushwhackers used double team tactics, hit the battering ram, hit a double gutbuster, 1, 2, 3. That's it. We're done already. And then we get Mr. Perfect versus the Blue Blazer, as the Blue Blazer rockets to the ring. The Blue Blazer was Owen Hart, by the way, in case anybody doesn't know. This is where things started to pick up, even though, it was obvious who was going to win. Blazer did have some good speed. He had a good dive outside. Really, really, really good stuff. He really was ahead of his time. Owen was. Just whether he was doing this here in the U.S., Canada, or Japan, he just really was. Him and Pillman were really ahead of their time. Perfect did take over. Blazer, I almost said Owen. Blazer did try to hit some moves, but in the end, Perfect Plex, 1, 2, 3. Within 1 hour, I believe by 58 minutes, we're done with 5 matches. This is a 3 hour and 40 minute card almost. 3 hour and 40 minute card. Yeah, that happened. Mr. Fuji competes in a 5K race or whatever in a suit. That's something. That was dumb, but whatever. Run DMC is then here. Why? I guess they weren't doing the WrestleMania rap yet. And it was what it was. I mean, I guess the crowd was very muted during this, though. I mean, the crowd was very muted during quite a bit of this. They popped for some of the entrances, but for a lot of the matches, they just didn't care. Because they were a casino crowd. Trump probably paid them all to be there with the money that he had before he went bankrupt multiple fucking times. I don't like Trump, can you tell? And if you do and you're watching this, congratulations. Okay. Demolition versus the Powers of Pain with Mr. Fuji, and this was for the tag title. So the Demolition, as the champions, are at a 2-on-3 disadvantage. Except they aren't. They aren't. They are not that. Powers of Pain did okay. But Demolition, I mean, yeah, Demolition got beat up a little bit or whatever, but eventually they end up getting a hold of Mr. Fuji, end up pinning him, even though I'm not sure Fuji was the legal guy, but the ref just counted. I mean, maybe I just missed the tag or whatever, but they hit their big finisher, 1, 2, 3. Mr. Fuji got pinned. This is, I think, the last match that Mr. Fuji competed in, which is probably competed in, yeah, because I can add extra layers of things. So It was okay. Demolition is funny. They won the tag titles at WrestleMania 4 as a heel team. They retained at Mania 5 as a face. And then they won them again at WrestleMania 6 against Colossal Connection as a Colossal Connection, because I can talk. Or I'm just mixing an accent in there. But they won them as faces. So it's weird that they won the tag titles as heels and then won the tag titles as faces. I don't know. Weird little facts like that. Also, last year I did a 20 WrestleMania facts video that the Derb did a really, really funny Photoshop thing for. It was really funny. But yeah, so Demolition wins, and then we get Dino Bravo versus Ronnie Garvin. It happened. You ended up having a side suplex that pinned Ronnie Garvin. And then Ronnie Garvin beat up Dino Bravo's manager, Frenchie Martin, afterwards. Yeah, that happened. A lot of throwaway matches on this thing. A lot of throwaway matches. We didn't get Strikeforce versus the Brainbusters. This was Strikeforce's first big event back since Martel had an injury after, I think it was sometime after. It was either at Mania 4 or sometime after. But Tito had been a singles guy, and then it was okay, we're going to get the band back together and everything, and we're going to do well. Well, the Brainbusters, the only actual WrestleMania appearance in a match for Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. Arn would have Mania appearances afterwards, namely helping out Flair against The Undertaker at Mania 18, but yeah, Bobby Heenan managed a lot of people at this point. Mix of good spots. Messy. There were a couple messy spots also. You did have Santana accidentally hitting Martel with the flying forearm, and Martel's just upset outside after selling. And he finally just looks and he just leaves. Martel leaves. He's done with it. It was a bit messy, but Santana would eventually get beat up, and then Spike Piledriver 1, 2, 3. And then Martel cuts a promo, full heel turn, saying, I'm tired of that guy riding my coattails. I didn't want to have the team back together, and it was all that, so perfectly done. And then we get to Piper's Pit with Brother Love, Roddy Piper, Morton Downey Jr., and oh dear, this is where the show ground to a fucking halt. This was atrocious. And I love Roddy Piper. I got a Piper shirt right back there. Roddy Piper is one of the best talkers of all time. This was an atrocity. And not because of Piper so much. Because even Piper's only human and can only say something so much. Brother Love starts off. Right off the bat, you're not off to a great start. Now, I know Brother Love was meant to be a heel. It was meant to get a lot of heat and everything. And do a whole bunch of stuff and get people pissed off and do all that and da-da-da-da. Here's the problem, though. The Brother Love character would have been fine if it wasn't Bruce Pritchard. Mainly because Bruce Pritchard cannot talk. To say that for somebody in the wrestling business all that long, hashtag salad steel cage. Yeah, when he said that on Impact. And the guy was fine behind the scenes, I guess, but just not a good talker on camera. And I know I'm one to talk, but guess what? I'm just a wrestling fan. That's a guy in the wrestling business for 30 plus years. And he doesn't know how to talk on camera. And he got freaking schooled. The crowd was shitting all over this. They were either silent or shitting all over this. It was abysmal. Roddy tried to make it a little better. You had Morton Downey Jr. out there. I don't know who the hell Morton Downey Jr. is. I don't have a damn clue, and I don't care. Whatever. The guy smoked a lot. I know that much about him. Or at least he smoked a lot in this. Roddy Piper tried to save it. He did humiliate Brother Love, which is what Bruce Pritchard deserves, to be humiliated on camera for being an embarrassment as far as I'm concerned. But they're apparently your fans of his, and I'm not going to fault you guys if you're fans of his watching this show. As I'm just a wrestling fan giving my opinions. He's in the wrestling business making a whole bunch of money. He just doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, apparently. But anyway, Roddy Piper gets sick of Morton Downey Jr. blowing a whole bunch of smoke in his face and everything and all that. And this was bad. This was really fucking bad. Eventually he says, you know what? I'll take one of those smokes. And he pulls out a fire extinguisher from under one of the stools and sprays Morton Downey Jr. in the face. I don't know if it was a legit fire extinguisher or not, but it looked like he might have surprised, Downey, and he did that and didn't crack him over the head with it, unfortunately. Well, hey, at least Bruce Pritchard got humiliated on camera. That's always good, but this was an atrocity. This was fucking rotten. And then we go to the best thing afterwards. We go to a No Holds Barred plug. Yeah. No Holds Barred, that movie that hadn't come out yet, or was coming out very soon. And, God. Why the fuck? Why honestly did this happen? Why? You should have sent the bushwhackers back out there to do this kind of shit and have them lick, have them lick people and stuff like that. That's what you should have fucking done. Send the bushwhackers out to do this stuff and everything and all that, because that's the best I can do with the bushwhackers impression. Just do that. Because honestly, you didn't need No Holds Barred plug here, because No Holds Barred was fucking shit. And, I mean, I know it wasn't meant to be anything high class, but for fuck's sake, that movie was so goddamn bad. And then we had Sean Mooney, and I like Sean Mooney. I think Sean Mooney's actually a pretty cool name. I think he has his own podcast. I've actually listened to... He either has his own podcast, or he used to. But, I mean, I listened to a little bit of it, and actually the guy's got a great voice, and the guy's got a really good podcasting voice. And knows his shit. But Trump's hair... He's interviewing Donald Trump. His hair even looked fake in 1989. Wonder if he wanted to fuck Ivanka even back then. Was Ivanka even born? I don't know. Let's move on. Then we get recaps of the Hogan Savage build, and we get Hogan with a basic promo saying, that making it like Savage was the one to turn to the dark side and stuff like that, not like Hogan taking his fucking spotlight all the goddamn always. But Hogan's never taken the spotlight from anybody. Except he has. Anyway... We then get some recaps of that. Andre the Giant versus Jake Snake Roberts with Big John Studd as the ref. Not good at all. Andre really shouldn't have been wrestling at this point. It was slow plotting. Not that I expected Andre to do a bunch of flips and stuff like that. I mean, Jake was more of a guy that didn't do a lot of big bumps either. But, well, it was what it was, and it happened. Studd and Andre end up scuffling or whatever, during the later parts of the match. Jake Roberts goes to get the snake. Ted DiBiase, Virgil run out there and attack him. Ted DiBiase takes the snake backstage, or tries to. Jake Roberts runs down and attacks him. Gets the snake, throws it in the ring. Andre freaks out. I think it was Big John Studd's last pay-per-view appearance, because he retired later that year. But, yeah, this was bad. This was really, really fucking bad. Then Sensational Sherry interview talking about Rockin' Robin as the Singing America the Beautiful and how it wasn't very good, and no, it really wasn't. Sensational Sherry really did give some of the best interviews. And Tony Schiavone did a lot of the backstage interviews here. This is the only appearance that Tony Schiavone had at a WrestleMania, as I recall. It was either him or Sean Mooney. Mean Gene Okerlund, of course, did some of them, because of course Gene did, because Mean Gene was one of the best backstage interviewers ever, if not the best. Be hard-pressed to find somebody better. But... we then get the Hart Foundation versus Greg Valentine, Honky Tonk Man. It was okay. Hey, at least Jim Neidhart was on a WrestleMania card. I mean, I know he was going to be on others after that. But Brett then pinned Honky Tonk. So at least that happened. So at least the soon-to-be inducted in WWE Hall of Fame hack that is Honky Tonk Man. Hacky Tonk Man. There we go. That's a good name. Yeah, he got pinned. So good. And then we get the Warrior versus Ravishing Rick Rude for the IC title, and Warrior is the Intercontinental Champion after beating Honky Tonk Man at WrestleMania, or not WrestleMania, but SummerSlam 88. I don't have a clue how Honky Tonk Man managed to hold the title for that goddamn long. But hey, I don't like Warrior, but hey, at least he squashed him, and that was good stuff. And then, Rude had to fucking carry the hell out of Warrior. I'm betting that Hogan and Warrior got along with Trump really well. You got racism and homophobia coming together in one goddamn person, and then you got Hogan and Warrior. But anyway, yeah, you got Rude carrying him. Warrior tried coming back, but Bobby Heenan ended up holding the feet of Warrior during the spot, holding him down for the 1-2-3. Rick Rude gets the victory, and then Warrior drops Hogan, or not drops Hogan. Warrior dropped Hogan later. Actually, he dropped him at the next Mania. But he dropped Bobby Heenan, which is far worse because, God, he fucking just butchered Heenan. God damn. And then you get Bad News Brown versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan. It was a quick match with a double DQ. And then you get the Red Rooster versus Bobby Heenan. It was supposed to be a match, and I mean, Bobby Heenan wasn't wrestling really much at this point anyway, except in comedy matches. Brooklyn Brawlers at ringside with Heenan. Red Rooster wins in about 30 seconds. Terry Taylor deserved this Red Rooster gimmick because he was a fucking moron. Well, he was kind of a bit of a prick. But yeah, then Brooklyn Brawler attacks Red Rooster afterwards, and then Rooster chases them both off. And then we get the Savage versus Hogan in a match. Oh my God. Finally, the main event. Hooray! Savage should have won this. Even by DQ or something. He should have goddamn won this and carried it to SummerSlam 89. Hogan did not need another year-long title reign, or nearly a year. I think it was close to a year. He did not need another year-long title reign. There was no goddamn reason for it. It was fucking humiliating. But, you know, it was a great match, and Savage could get the best out of Hogan. He got the best out of Hogan here, and eventually Hogan would, of course, you know, no-sell the goddamn elbow, the flying elbow, the sky elbow, and get the victory for... Hogan would get the victory after the leg drop for the 1-2-3, holding the title aloft, and I just didn't like it. I didn't like the finish. The match was great, though. Savage should have won. But yeah, Mania 5 was not all that good. It just goddamn wasn't. It had a great main event and a couple good moments. But now we're going to get to Clash of Champions 6. Ragin' Cajun. That's what it's called. The Ragin' Cajun Showdown from the Superdome. George Scott did not promote this goddamn thing, apparently, according to Jim Cornette's podcast, because he was there, so I got to take his word for it, because he knows his facts and figures and stuff like that. George Scott, who could not book anything at this point to save his goddamn life, signed the worst people in the world. Signed some people like Ricky Steamboat, though. That was a great signing, but he would sign other people that had no business being in the ring. And yeah, there were 5,000 people, maybe less, in the Superdome. The Superdome capacity is just slightly bit absolutely more than that. God damn. We then get JR Michael Hayes introducing us to the card, writing down stuff and everything. Get a bunch of legends showing up last night, including Buddy Rogers. Buddy Roberts was a legend in some promotion, but Buddy Rogers, Lou Thesz, and various other champions. So that was really, really cool. And then you get Jim Herd talking. I was under the impression he had a Futurama brain slug on his head. So yeah, Jim Herd could never talk, and he was a goddamn idiot. And piece of shit. Couldn't run a goddamn wrestling company to save his life. But then we have a video package bringing us up to speed. We get a national anthem played. Okay, Hayes is annoying on commentary because we get JR Michael Hayes for most of this show. Now, fun fact, before I get into this, there were matches that they cut due to time constraints. There were also matches that were cut from the WWE, the WWE showing. They cut Bob Orton beating Dick Murdoch. They cut Mike Rotunda and Steve Williams being the Road Warriors for the NWA tag titles. They cut Ranger Ross beating the Iron Sheik by a DQ in like 2 minutes. And 2 matches that were cut due to time constraints that were later shown on WCW Pro or Worldwide or whatever it was. Lex Luger versus Jack Victory for the U.S. title, and Sting versus Rip Morgan. Not Rip Rogers, because we're talking about talented guys named Rip. But yeah, those matches were, like, 3 of those matches were cut from the WWE Network broadcast for whatever reason. And then 2 of those were cut due to time constraints, but shown later. And I mean, quite frankly, really besides the NWA tag title match, I really didn't feel like I missed anything. But we get the Midnight Express with Jim Cornette versus the Samoan SWAT team with Paul E. Dangerously, a.k.a. Paul Heyman. It was a good match. Midnight using good double team tactics. Good speed. Well worked. Samoans use power and dirty tactics. Really good work by all. It was a very nice, well-flowing tag match, even with some goofy spots. Rocket launcher as, Stan Lane launched Bobby Eaton onto one of the Samoans. And I believe actually it was Fatu. They got Paul E. Dangerously's phone, the big old brick cell phone, hit Bobby Eaton in the head, and then rolled over his partner Samu onto Bobby Eaton for the 1-2-3. Samoan SWAT team decided, got the deciding fall. And the only reason the Midnight Express lost here is I believe apparently they had given their notice to, WCW because George Scott was such an idiot and they didn't want to work for him. And I don't blame him because he was a fucking moron. Thankfully, because of how he bungled this one so bad, he was fired soon afterwards. But that was a good tag match. That was a good opener. I would have put the Midnight Express over, but it was what it was. And then we get the Great Muta versus Steve Casey. Steve Casey, who had a good look and was a good athlete, but Great Muta, this was a showcase for him. He ended up spraying the mist very, very quickly. And in a match that should have gone 3 minutes, went on a bit too long. He did beat up Casey. I don't think Casey got much offense in at all. Muta just beat him up, and then eventually would hit the Muta Salt, 1, 2, 3, and there we go. A jazz band plays JYD to the ring, a New Orleans jazz band. That was pretty damn cool. Marching band, jazz band, whatever. And JR says at one point, talking about a particular fan that wrote in from Stamford, Connecticut, or from Connecticut, JR says, we know we've got a lot of fans in Connecticut, Stamford, all around that area. Well played, JR, because at the time, JR was obviously working for the competition. JYD versus Butch Reed, Hiro Matsuda in Butch Reed's corner. Hiro Matsuda managed a weird array of talent, at least in this era of WCW. I mean, Hiro Matsuda, a legend in his own right, 100%. JYD versus Butch Reed should have drawn a lot more fans of the Superdome, but JYD was not motivated at this point. Butch Reed was, but Butch Reed was going to be out of the business in a couple years anyway. It was what it was. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. There were some bad spots. There were some decent spots. Reed ends up getting sent into Matsuda. That knocks him out. JYD gets a cover 1, 2, 3. Crowd's sent, happy, because JYD got the victory in New Orleans. And then Kevin Sullivan and Dan Spivey versus Rick Steiner and Eddie Gilbert, a U.S. Tag Team title match, and it's over immediately. Like, Gilbert gets an inside cradle on Spivey within, 3 minutes. It's like, what the fuck was this? And then Gilbert got beat up afterwards, and then Rick Steiner brought in a chair and stuff like that, so it just... Yeah, we're not up to the best start, but then they cut some of those matches. And Lex Luger versus Jack Victory was cut due to time constraints. That's good, because they didn't have to see Lex Luger wrestle. That's always good. Yeah, this review's kind of short, because really it's a one-match. Well, I mean, the opening tag match with Midnight Express and Samoan SWAT team was good, but other than that, it was Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat, 2 out of 3 falls match for the NWA title. I cannot summarize just how great this match is, even if I was given 50 minutes to talk. It really is that just goddamn wonderful. Terry Funk joins JR on commentary. Thankfully, we got Michael Hayes off commentary for this. We really didn't need Michael Hayes bungling this whole thing. I mean, sorry, the guy was a hell of a talker. He just wasn't very good on commentary. But him and Terry Funk did so goddamn good here. Little seeds kind of getting planted here with Terry Funk. One to face, possibly facing Ric Flair, and that would actually happen after Wrestle War 89, where they would set all that shit up. And I will be reviewing that one sometime in May, because that's when it happened. Watch it be up sometime in the mid-April. But this match was superb, goddamn wonderful. Even though there was some stalling and there was a lot of rest holds in the beginning, it was just so damn well done. I mean, a Steamboat Flair match is a work of art. Like the trilogy they had in 89, and the one they had at Spring Stampede 94, which is a match I probably actually need to review that entire pay-per-view, but especially just that match. That is a forgotten classic. That's 30 minutes. And it's a really damn good classic, and one that often gets forgotten about. Great exchanges and everything. At about 20 minutes into the first fall, Flair gets a small package for 3. So Steamboat gets a small package, but then Flair reverses it 1, 2, 3, and small package, inside cradle, whatever you call it. So it's 1 fall for Flair. And then, a number of minutes later, I think it was 15 minutes later, Steamboat's working on Flair's back, targeting him, beating him up. And Steamboat forces a submission with a double chicken wing, holding, Flair up by the arms and everything, holding him back like that. And not the Iconics pose, but also, just holding them up and everything, and Flair ends up submitting. So, okay, 35 minutes in of a 60-minute time limit match, so you're thinking we might go to a draw because, we're over halfway in and 1 fall apiece. And, more good stuff, more great speed. They really turned it up and everything, just some goddamn great spots. And then in the end, Steamboat goes for the crossface, or, goes for the chicken wing again, the double chicken wing. But Flair had also been working on Steamboat's leg, so Steamboat's leg gives out. And they're near the ropes, so what happens is both men's shoulders are to the mat. So Flair's pinned like this, back and everything, so his arms are like that, but his shoulders are still to the mat. And referee counts 1, 2, Steamboat gets his shoulder up just at the last second, 3. Flair's foot was also under the bottom rope. So that's going to lead, that leads to a disputed finish, even though Steamboat's declared the winner. Steamboat then has an interview with JR and everything, and they look at the footage and stuff like that, and okay. Steamboat's well, I beat Ric Flair fair and square, but if it's a fluky finish, then we will have to see what happens. So, hey, that was actually a pretty good main event. It was a great main event, actually. I would argue that at least Clash of Champions 6 made the most of its time. Sure, it had to cut some matches due to time constraints and stuff like that, but at least they made the most use of their time, and that main event was absolutely spectacular. Savage versus Hogan was also great, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Clash of Champions 6, though I will no doubt, 100% give the business side to WWE. They made a ton of money on that. Clash of Champions 6 did not. Did not. It probably cost them God knows how much to open up the Superdome. And yeah, the crowd that was there was pretty loud, especially for Steamboat and Flair. But God, there were just so few people there, and it was sad. But yeah, the disputed finish that would lead to Wrestle War 89, which is a show that I will end up reviewing at some point. But anyway, that's a bit of a lengthy review, but yeah, I just wanted to do that because, as you notice, I took most of the time up to cover history of these events, leading up to both these events facing off on the same day, and ranted quite a bit about WWE. So yeah, there was no need to do a Clash of Champions 6 review. It would have been like about 5-10 minutes. But anyway, that is what I have to say. What do you have to say? What are some other shows that you would like me to do retro reviews on? Bear in mind, make sure it's something on the WWE Network, because I don't really I'll try to review some New Japan stuff, but we'll see. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin, and I will see you soon.